What's up, everybody? Welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. Welcome, in fact, to our Friday show that we do. It's the Amy, Rex, and Robbie show. And today we're going to be talking about, because all the time we've been talking about, over the last several years, actually, we've been talking about franchise fatigue, right? So let's flip the script and go into the franchises that work for us. What are the best film franchises out there? And of course, we got the dastardly Dynamite duo here to discuss the deliciousness of these film franchises. Let's welcome alluring Amy and revolting Rex. What is up?
New favorite. Great job, Robbie.
Oh my God, he's getting weak now. Okay, you can tell he's making this up 10 minutes before the show. What's up,
How
man?
are y'all doing?
We're doing okay.
Doing well, keeping busy, a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, I bet. A lot of big Dynamite announcements this week. Powerpuff Girls, the Shatara one miniseries. So lots of stuff happening in Dynamite land, I'm sure, right?
Big time. I'm so excited for the Powerpuff books. I'll be exploding. Like that whole release week, I'm just gonna that's all that's gonna be on my mind.
Heck yeah. I'm a big fan of the Powerpuff Girls. Mojo Jojo being my favorite character in the whole mix. Like, absolutely fantastic stuff. So I'm really, really excited. So y'all also got a really good team behind that. But we have been, over the months, over the years, on this show in particular, me and Rex, we've talked a lot, as well as Amy, but me and Rex, we've been talking about this since we started this whole Friday show, right? About film franchises and how we're getting tired of that formula, right? But there is a reason why everybody wants a franchise. It's because there's a lot of successful franchises. Now, there may not be a lot of really solid all the way through franchises. There may not be a lot of consistent franchises, but there are a lot that definitely are worth discussing. So today we want to discuss, thank you, Anissa. I just had my hair did yesterday. I appreciate that. But today we're going to be discussing our personal favorite film franchises. So this is going to be a great conversation. What do y'all think?
Absolutely.
I'm just excited.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let me get away from the praise on my hair and beard, and let's start with Rex today. Rex, why don't you tell us one film franchise that you think stands the test of time as one of the best?
All right, so kind of in chronological order, and it was in your thumbnail, obviously. It's James Bond. Okay, so it's really stood the test of time. Even though we've had multiple Bonds by this point, excuse me, some better than others. There has always been this interest that has gone on and on and on for whatever reason. So it's got to be number one on my list, from the test of time to the number of actors, the way it's evolved and changed based on, just its longevity. So you got to give James Bond kudos, right? There's no way around that.
Yeah, I thought I would be struggling to put a list together of more than 5 franchises, but I have a giant list here, and Bond is one of them, right? And here's the thing. Rex, you would agree with me, I'm sure. Not every Bond movie is great. No. Right? There are some really...
Bond was great.
What's that?
Not every Bond was great.
That's right, right? But and it's definitely not a consistent franchise. Like, it's not like the same level of quality all the way throughout, but it's a franchise that even in its darkest moments finds a way to revitalize itself eventually. And it's generational. We're more than 2 generations into this, right? This is a film franchise that started in the 60s and is still going today. And even right now, we're awaiting news of the next Bond film and who the next Bond is going to be. And every Bond movie, whether they suck or not, is a tent pole of pop culture of that year. With the intro, with the song that's attached to it, with whoever's playing Bond, whoever's playing the Bond villain, who's ever playing the henchman, who's ever playing the Bond girl. Like, it's always something that's relevant, and it definitely makes a franchise that stands the test of time, for sure.
Well, I think what it's done is it's adapted to the changing tastes of the public over the years, right?
Which it has to.
Right, but in a very real way. So So you look at the Sean Connery 1960s, different time, yeah, right in the middle of the Cold War. So he was an introduction into character and being a spy with all these interesting gadgets, that kind of thing. Then you go into the Roger Moore period in the 70s, where there was more of a tongue-in-cheek in the movies because the attitude toward spies and wars had changed, right? So they did it in a kind of a tongue-in-cheek method. Then you had the Pierce Brosnan, the Timothy Dalton ones obviously were not very good. The Pierce Brosnan was kind of, I don't know, I guess more a reflection of the 90s.
Yeah.
And then of course our last incarnation of it it was more of a action Bond, more of a realistic Bond, kind of following the line of people's tastes.
And Daniel Craig, they give real storyline throughout all of his movies, like how he changed it, how he changed as a person, his relationship with being a spy and being in love. And
well, I think it's kind of like it's kind of like the movies that we were looking for, the kind of John Wick type of action film. So the Bond character, the Daniel Craig acting kind of geared more towards that in a way. So I think that has been interesting, and I think that's given it its longevity. Is every movie they make, they kind of recognize that the time has changed, the audience has changed, their tastes have changed, so let's change with it. And that's why it's been able, and hey, look, it had its stuff.
Oh, we're losing y'all. We're losing y'all. Just so you know. We're losing y'all. Got to let this run out. We just got to let this run out, y'all. That's what we got to do.
The first time, yeah. So I think that's why it's managed to hold on to its longevity.
Okay, all right. Now here's what's interesting is like the Daniel Craig Bonds, right? You could definitely say those are more of a serious approach to the franchise, right? But even those movies get into films like Spectre, right, where it gets a little bit more goofy, where it gets a little bit more classic. All these Bond movies do that. There's even some Roger Moore ones that you could say are a little bit more like the originals, and then it kind of becomes like a parody of itself. And I'm just gonna say this real quick. I'm not trying to say you're wrong, Rex, but you're wrong about Timothy Dalton. He's one of the best Bonds out there. 100%. Living Daylights is a great movie. A great movie. So there you go.
Sorry, I got to disagree. He was, I don't know. He didn't bring anything new. I would say, the Roger Moore era, I think the last one that was taking itself that seriously was probably Man with the Golden Gun. Then after that, it became kind of a parody, tongue in cheek, more and more. You know what I mean? But yeah.
And I love The Man with the Golden Gun because even though that may not be the best movie, Christopher Lee kills it in that movie, right? Yeah. And so like even the worst Bond movies have things that I like. I mean, honestly, the only Bond movie that I seriously just hate watching is Octopussy. And that's a lot of people's favorites for some reason, right? Or The Spy Who Loved Me. Like, I don't know. There's a certain era of Roger Moore where I just hate it so much. But I still love it.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah. Absolutely. Who's your favorite Bond, Rex?
I would have to say it's still Sean Connery.
Same. Same.
Yeah.
Connery, Dalton, and Craig for me.
I would say Connery, Craig, and I gotta say Roger Moore. I mean, it fit its era. Live and Let Die. In the Bayou. I agree. Octopussy got stupid. I
hate the ones. I just always hate it when they have that damn sheriff. He like shows up in a few movies, right? That sheriff that's always chasing Bond, and I think it's in Live and Let Die. Then he's in the next one, and like, oh come on! And it's because, like you were saying, they're trying to keep up with the times. Smokey and the Bandit was a big deal at this time, right? So right. Kind of going with that vibe, right?
Yeah. So, but that's worked for them predominantly.
I was gonna say another thing about the Bond series, like that's the James Bond is the spy. So every spy-related or action-packed movie that came out afterwards is like just taking a page out of Bond's book. So just
in a sense, yeah. Yeah, in a sense, Jason Bourne, all of that. Yeah,
Yep.
in a sense, you're right.
So highly
Even the
influenced.
Batman movies, do the Bond formula, right? There's a new
Right.
Batman love interest. There's a new big star as the villain. Like even the Batman movies kind of go along with that
right.
whole.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with that.
Yeah. Who's your favorite Bond, Amy?
I've only because I've seen his movies the most. I'll stick with Daniel Craig, but he's a great actor regardless. No matter at least I believe, and I'm happy that now that he's put Bond to rest, he can do whatever silliness he wants, especially with the Knives Out movies, which he's great in. And, I'm happy to see where he's going to go, but I'm also excited for who the next James Bond is going to be. I hope it's more of an unknown person, so we can really see them as James Bond.
The latest rumors are what's his name? Aaron Taylor Johnson, the guy that played Kick-Ass and Quicksilver. Is that the dude? He's the latest front runner, it seems, right now. So we'll see. We'll see what
I don't object to. I like him.
Yeah. I wouldn't object to it either. And I love the Daniel Craig movies. I think his first three are perfect. And I still think the best Bond movie ever made is Casino Royale. That movie is just so hard hitting, so good. Speaking of hard hitting and so good, oh, that sounded weird. Amy, I'm so sorry. Amy, what do you think? What's your next franchise that you want to talk about?
The next franchise I want to talk about, because it was a big part of my childhood.
Oh, we're losing you again.
And
we're losing
really
you all again
throughout my teens. I'm
just wait.
Go to the Wizarding World with Harry Potter. It was, and let's go back in time to when the books were still coming out, and especially when that. Oh,
y'all good? Y'all there?
Are we here? Are we still good? I hope so.
Yeah, you're here right now.
As I was saying,
good?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back in time to when that first movie came out. It was nothing I had ever seen. The books were a little hard for me to read. I was young. I was 7, 8. But Mom got me and my brother that DVD for that first movie, and we were like, whoa, this kid is learning spells and fighting this evil and his friends. It was mind-blowing. And just waiting each year for the next one to come out and growing up with those characters was such a unique experience.
Harry Potter would be on my list as well.
It felt like my child. Yeah. Anissa, when after the last movie, it was I remember me and my family, we went opening weekend. It was crazy. I cried, and I remember afterwards going, now what?
So I think it's on my list because it was unique. It was a new idea, and they turned it into a franchise, and it worked. It really did. A brand new idea. It wasn't something rehashed, that they've done over and over again. The world of magic, a real society built on wizards and things like that, was something we hadn't really dealt with before, or anybody had really dealt with. So that plus the popularity of the books, helped to launch it at that point. So it definitely is on my list. I don't know if Marcus is being sarcastic or what. Blade Runner, I do not consider a franchise at all.
I think you got to have at least 3 to be a franchise. I think like 3 Super Bowls makes a dynasty, not 2, right? So that's why I didn't put Gremlins on my list, even though I
didn't put Avatar on my list either because of that.
Yeah,
third movie's not out yet, so
yeah, we gotta wait, right?
Too long a gap.
Here's the thing about Harry Potter. And Harry Potter was genius in the fact that there was a whole generation of people that grew up with those books. Then there's a whole generation of people that grew up with those movies, right? And the way the movies, if you start watching those movies as a kid, which I didn't, right? The first Harry Potter movie came out after high school for me, right? And I remember watching the first one being like, this isn't for me. I eventually watched the second one and was like, this is actually pretty good. Really got into it by the third one, read all the books, and then enjoyed the rest of the franchise. It's a genius idea to have a character that your audience grows up with, right? Like for me, it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that the TV show. She was a sophomore in high school when I was a sophomore. She graduated the year I graduated. She was dealing with being an adult when I was, right? So it's to a different extent because it's later in my life, but like Harry Potter, like a lot of 8-year-olds read that first book or watched that first movie. And as they're watching those books or watching those movies or reading those books, they are growing up with that character. And that's an interesting thing. Plus, this is probably Harry Potter may be the most consistent franchise out there. There's not like there we could all rank the Harry Potter movies, but they're all at the same general level of quality, I would say. In particular, like there's movies that are, I think Prisoner of Azkaban's the best by far. I also think it's the best book, but it's all kind of on the same level. It's very consistent. It doesn't like the James Bond franchise kind of does this, right? And so many other franchises. Well, we lost him. We've lost him as I'm rambling about Harry Potter. So what do y'all think? Anissa says, it also helps that all those kids could act. There's no child actors, especially as a group that could pull off what they did. That is a big part of that success of that franchise as well, is it was the same actors all the way through. You get into them, and not just the kids, right? But everybody else in the Harry Potter franchise, like Ralph Fiennes as Voldemort is absolutely amazing. You got Alan Rickman as Severus Snape. You have 2 Dumbledores because Richard Harris passed away, but both Richard Harris and Michael Gambon were absolutely fantastic in those roles. All the teachers, all the villains, everybody throughout that Harry Potter franchise just works so well. All right, as we wait on Rex and Amy to show up, I guess I can go into my first franchise I want to talk about, and I'm going to talk about Deo. I'm right there with you. Right there with you. Timothy Dalton's James Bond is way better than most people give it credit for. License to Kill is a revenge picture. It's less of a Bond movie and more of a revenge film. But Living Daylights, to me, is a pitch perfect James Bond movie. I absolutely love it. I think it's amazing. And I just wish that he would have gotten a little bit more to do. Like if we would have gotten like that third Timothy Dalton film, I think it could have really, really worked. All right, I'm getting a message. Let's see what this is. Rex has just informed me that their internet has gone down completely. So let's have a thought for our friends over at Dynamite right now, as their internet is down. Completely down. Okay. Well, let's see what happens here. Got to cast that internet connectedness. Absolutely, 9-Panel Grid. Let me, everybody, by the way, Eric from 9-Panel Grid, go check out his channel. He made his debut appearance on the monthly comic book review last night, and it was absolutely a splendid job that our buddy Easy Eric did. What's up, Marcus? The Comcast franchise is the all-time worst. All right. The first franchise that I wanted to mention here is The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid. I picked The Karate Kid because I didn't think Rex or Amy would, and they're not even here to let them know that I heard, all right, just let us, okay, cool. Hold on just a second. Let me message Rex. These shows with Dynamite are so professional. Yep, Rex says their internet is down. Thank you so much, Rogue Collecting. Karate Kid. I'm going to talk about Karate Kid here because I love the first Karate Kid movie. I think it's actually very important. It's a very important and impactful film, especially for me. I love Karate Kid 2, right? Karate Kid 3 is not the best. And then you got the next Karate Kid, and then I guess you got the remake or whatever. I never saw that remake. And if it was just that, then I wouldn't list this as one of my favorite franchises ever, right? Because I love Karate Kid 1 and 2. 3, it's all right. 4, But Cobra Kai 100% really, really like nailed that as one of my favorite franchises. Not only did it add so much depth and dimension and nuance to the character of Johnny Lawrence, not only did it paint Daniel in a different light, it also recontextualizes so much about that original film franchise that it actually makes, because of its use of the villain Terry Silver, it actually makes Karate Kid 3 worth watching, which is crazy to me. Like, when I was a kid, I liked Karate Kid 3, but rewatching it as an adult, it's a bad movie. But with all of the Cobra Kai stuff, it actually makes Karate Kid 3 not just watchable, but an enjoyable experience. All right, everybody, cross your fingers. Let's see if the worst franchise of all times, Comcast, has gotten their shit together. Rex, Amy, I don't think so. Don't think so. All right. They're trying so hard. Nope. Not there. Nope. Still not there. All right. Let's, what do y'all think are some of the best franchises out there? I don't want to get too far ahead of my list because I want to hear their list. They're trying to make it back. I think they should go to a hot spot. Like, that's what you should do. Y'all there? They're not there yet. Anybody want to jump on? Eric, you at work? What do you want to do? You want to jump on? I'll send you the link. Anissa, talking about Karate Kid, says, oh my God, yes, I loved when my mom showed me that movie. The ending made me feel so many things, especially as a kid who was getting bullied. Hell yeah. Rogue Collecting says, Eric was a great addition to our panel yesterday. Hell yeah. Anissa says, and the new IP with Jaden Smith was literally my all-time favorite theater moments of my life. Still think about it to this day. Everyone cheered and screamed and jumped at the end. Amazing thing. I've never seen that one. I need to, because there is a new Karate Kid movie coming that is going to be, it's got Daniel in it, but it's also got Jackie Chan's character. So it's like combining the two. So it's like the Karate Kid multiverse or some shit like that. Come back for Comcast strikes again. I'll tell you this. The Comcast franchise here on this show is, at times it was entertaining. Now it's getting a little old. Now it's like, why don't they have good internet? Like what's going on here? Oh, they're trying. Let's see, y'all. Hey.
No idea how long we're going to be back here.
I'm so upset.
You're there. What's up? How are y'all doing?
Not great.
Yeah, now she's ready to kill Comcast.
Are you on a hotspot or something now? What you doing?
So
I'm upset.
All right,
really
looks
upset.
like we're back anyway.
All right, for now you're back. I just mentioned Karate Kid. And the reason why I said Karate Kid was because without Cobra Kai, it's not one of my favorite franchises, but Cobra Kai has recontextualized those films for me that even makes 3 an enjoyable experience. So I said Cobra Kai. Any thoughts? Or Karate Kid?
I think it's unique. I think the path that Karate Kid took was very unique. Now, they tried to, Marcus, right? It went from a strong 1 and 2 to they lost it in 3, obviously. And then Jackie Chan tried to remake it with Jaden Smith, and that was horrible. And then Cobra Kai came out of nowhere, on YouTube. So I think it's had a very unique trajectory to where it is now. And that's pretty cool. Okay. Because no other franchise has taken that road. Yeah. So in that sense, I think it's very unique.
Yeah, and it's I can't think of too many franchises right now that languished for decades and then came back, right? Better than ever. Yeah, it is insane.
Yeah, sorry. All right. Anissa, I'm sorry. I did not like it. It was essentially Karate Kid, except we put Jack Chan in. We put it in China instead of California. It was a carbon copy with different actors. I'm sorry. Jackie with the car was the same thing as Miyagi with the medals. It was just you can't. It was a remake. It wasn't a sequel of any kind, changing around the action. Okay. So it was to be honest with you, it was also a PR push by China. So yeah, I did not enjoy it at all.
Which karate is a Japanese martial art, but we don't need to get into that right now. So far we've gotten through round 1, right? Just a little bit, right? But I'll tell you what, I'm very surprised that we've made it through round 1. No Star Wars, no superheroes. It's great. Harry Potter, James Bond, Karate Kid. Rex, kick off round 2. What you got?
All right. So this one I got to give kudos to. Has also tried to come back with limited success. Planet of the Apes. In the 60s and early 70s, that was the franchise. It was one of the first, along with James Bond, right? It was unique. It was dystopian story with intelligent apes. I mean, it was just unique in and of itself, and has managed to last that test of time. Like most franchises, they made the movies, then they tried to make a TV series, limited TV series out of it, and then it started to die. And then, of course, they brought it back. There was the one I forget what year it was, with what's his face? Come on,
Roddy McDowall?
No, not Roddy McDowall. Current actor.
Who?
Oh my God.
Are you talking about the remake?
Yeah, they own a burger joint. Him and his
Mark
brother.
Wahlberg's
Wahlberg.
version. I know.
So that one was okay. That one was okay, but I don't know. But the recent ones, like I just watched again War for the Planet of the Apes, and I gotta admit, with Woody Harrelson, that one I really enjoyed. It was a good one. It kind of dealt with why humanity lost their voice and how it turned out to be a virus, a disease. It was interesting. I really, so I have hope for where this franchise is going to end up going.
I'm not the biggest Planet of the Apes guy. Like I remember watching the original. I mean, when I was a kid, who knows which ones I watched? Whatever ones were on TBS or HBO or whatever, right?
Right.
And I was fascinated with them because of the makeup effects, right? But as an adult, when I tried to watch the first one, I just didn't really super get into it. So it's a franchise that I've always wanted to dive into and watch all the way through. I hear the new ones are really, really good. So it is a franchise, I guess, kind of like Karate Kid, where decades later, it kind of comes back and has a resurgence. And there's even a new one about to come out, right? So, Amy, got any thoughts on Planet of the Apes?
I've been slowly getting into Planet of the Apes. I'm doing with the newest series right now, and I'm getting into it, which is
pretty good.
I hope once I'm all caught up, I'm gonna try to see the new one in theater. So I've been getting into it.
All right, Amy, what's your next franchise you want to talk about?
If we're trying to avoid more bigger ones, I guess, Robbie, will we count the Universal Monsters as its own franchise? Like,
damn it, you took my number one. You took my number one, Amy.
Alrighty.
Yes, 100%. Universal Monsters counts. 100%.
And again, that's arguably the blueprint for all cinematic universes come after it. For better or for worse. Like, some are great and then some you can skip. But they're the staples, and really, in a matter of years, like Dracula and Frankenstein will be 100 years old, and they're just gonna stand. I think they're gonna continue to stand the test of time.
Yeah, I agree. The Universal horror franchise has so many just great films: Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, The Wolf Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon, The Mummy, and then there are all those, sequels or whatnot. And yeah, they're not all as good as some of the originals, but I enjoy every single movie in that entire franchise, all the way through Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, which I just think is amazing. And the Mummy franchise in particular, you know, the franchise within the franchise, I love. I love all of those Mummy movies. They're so much fun. And I even love the Stephen Sommers reboot that he did in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I love those.
I don't really consider that a franchise because it was separate movies made in a genre that Universal is now trying to capitalize and turn into a franchise by calling it a franchise. So they can
But it was a franchise back in the day, bro, because they all crossed over. House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman.
The same actors, they still did it.
Yeah, and then they even had consistency with it, right? Where like there's a story thread that you can kind of follow through it. Now the franchise didn't cement really until the 40s, but I don't know. I would consider it a franchise. Now they have tried to reignite that franchise to very poor results. You know, they tried their dark universe thing. It's like they don't know how to make it work. But I think Amy's spot on the moment. I mean, spot on the money. Like, this is the first cinematic universe, is the Universal monster stuff, in my opinion.
Anissa, like your question, were they comics first movies? They really generally were movies. I mean, Dracula's again the very famous novel. Frankenstein, very famous. Like most of them were novels, and then some of them were. I guess was the Mummy original, or is that loosely based on something? Do you know, Robbie?
The Mummy's original, but it's loosely based on like the fervor that the public was having with Egyptian mythology and mummies after the when they found King Tut's tomb, right? So there was mummy fever going on, and Wolfman and Creature from the Black Lagoon are original creations. But yeah, Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera, those are all based on novels for sure, Victorian novels in particular. So.
And yes, and people, and they're still their movie. Those first few movies are the blueprints to what that like later vampire and Frankenstein movies became. Like that was the starting point.
Yeah, 100%. All right, the next franchise I want to bring up is Rocky. I think Rocky is all right. I think Rocky's a very consistent franchise. Even the weakest Rocky film is one of my favorites, which I have the unpopular opinion that the weakest Rocky film is actually 4, and that 5 is better than people think. You think 3? 3 is so much fun, dude. Hulk Hogan, Mr. T. Come on, man.
Because you take it, to me, 3 became very much like 3 just became very much like 1 and 2. Okay. 1 was different than 2, but 3 just became okay. Yet another adversary, and Mickey trying to avoid the fight. It wasn't working for me.
See, I like 3 because I think 2 is just 1 redone, but Rocky wins this time, right?
Well, I think 1 and 2 are like one long story, really.
Yeah, but see, I like 3 because in 3, Rocky's getting like full of himself. He's becoming a celebrity, right? And he needs to be grounded, and that's what Mr. T's character is there to do, is to beat the crap out of this dude and make him realize, hey, you may be on top now, but there's always somebody who's hungry coming right behind you. He was
just a meaner Apollo Creed, so to me, that wasn't going to work. Marcus, Tommy Gunn, that was 5. Okay, to me, 4 and 5 revitalized the franchise. 3 was just a placeholder.
So do you like 5?
Oh, I like 5 very much.
See, most people hate 5, but 5's actually really good. It gets back to like some of the more of what like Rocky was. When he like goes back to his hometown, he loses all of his money, and then Rocky Balboa is fantastic as well, man.
So I love 5 because they finally moved to a point where, okay, so let's he's won the championship. He's got the money, so let's look at it after he loses all that money, because that commonly happens to a lot of boxers, right? And what happens to his life then? And then the real character of Rocky Balboa comes out. It wasn't the money that made him who he is. It turned out he just is who he is. The money just became, an afterthought. That's why I don't like 3, okay? you know, 3 became just him and his Lamborghinis, and you know, we get to see all the money, and now we're threatening by big bad Clubber Lang who wants to take that money, and it was goofy. To me, it was like every other movie that was coming out at the time. So to me, 5 was a very good movie. 4 had a kind of national feel to it. It was relevant, okay, in that the Soviet Union was a very, you know, forefront thing.
I think Rocky IV, Rex, single-handedly brought down the Berlin Wall, personally.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but you know, it was a common belief of what we as Americans believed at the time, you know, that they were cheating, they were using, you know, all these things to make it happen. And Dolph Lundgren was, you know, a great adversary, okay? You know, he, you know, tall, and he fit that mold, and you know, and you know, it was fantastic. It was, I
don't forget Brigitte Nelson either in that one. She's great too. So Rocky IV, though, the problem with Rocky IV is half of it's just a damn montage. It's just like music video after music video in that movie. When you rewatch it, it's like, it was very disappointing. That was my favorite growing up as a kid. I remember being a kid crying when Apollo dies. Like it bothered me more than any Freddy or Jason movie I had ever watched. Was watching Apollo Creed die.
Yeah, you know, you killed off Apollo Creed. It was. I felt like it was a relevant movie at the time. And then 5 was. I really thought 5 was very good.
Andy, you got thoughts on the Rocky franchise?
I've seen the original Rocky, and then I saw the Creed movies, which I do think should count because they're in the same universe.
You know, I've never seen the Creed movies still today. It's one of those gaps in my.
They're all good. I thought they were all good.
I saw one. It was okay. It was all right. It was.
I hear they're good.
It was.
I avoided the 6th. I avoided Rocky Balboa because I just didn't know if I don't know. I avoided that one for so long, but then when I watched it for the first time, I was really surprised. So I definitely want to check out the Creed movies. All right, Rex, what's another franchise you want to talk about? Kick off round 3.
All right. Well, you know, one that's got to be mentioned, of course, for its longevity as well, and its uniqueness in one sense, is Star Trek. Okay. This was a TV series that everyone questioned, that, you know, everyone doubted, that had a very small budget. You know, the irony of life is you look at what Gene Roddenberry's saying. Or it said in the past was, you know, the whole transporter concept they came up with that because they didn't have the budget. So they needed to find some cheap way to get from the ship to the planet and back again, you know, and they couldn't have a shuttlecraft or anything else, you know, in every episode of the series. So they came up with this cheap method. Got canceled in 3 years. Okay. And the fans just kept it alive until they made the first movie, the motion picture, which I enjoyed. It was, you know, not well accepted by, you know, most of the movie going world, and, you know, now still alive, and, you know, has spawned tons of additional series, tons of movies. And I think the idea, you know, even now, it's maybe especially now, is really relevant. So you can't talk about franchises without Star Wars.
Star Trek may not be the most consistent film franchise, but there's not a Star Trek movie that I won't watch. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love them, and some of them are absolutely amazing. Some of them not so much, but even Final Frontier, I'll watch it. Even Star Trek Nemesis, which is probably the worst out of all of them, I would still watch.
Exactly. Yeah, I've watched it multiple times too, but it's not great, I admit. I would say, what is it? First Contact to me, of the more recent ones, are you know, that one was really good.
First Contact is amazing. It's definitely the best Next Generation one for sure, right? I think it's my second favorite. I think I love no motion picture, First Contact, then Wrath of Khan, then like Undiscovered Country is probably where I would go with my top 4.
I want you to give Star Trek another chance because it's unique in many ways. And one of the most unique things is, and what I love Gene Roddenberry for, is when you look at all these sci-fi stories and movies, it's always dystopian. It's always a glass is half empty as opposed to glass half full. You know, the universe Roddenberry came up with was so optimistic It's mankind finally gets over that hump. We no longer have starvation. There is no monetary coin. Your purpose in life is not to make profit, but to better yourself and those around you. It was a very positive message. And I think that when you look at sci-fi and fantasy, very rarely do you have that kind of positive message. Usually the message is very bleak, very dark. Even Star Wars, the Empire, or a nuclear holocaust and the aftermath. It's always very negative, and Star Trek was unique in that fact. And then that's where I think Roddenberry's genius was.
I would agree 100%. Amy, what you got next?
I'm like, do I stick with a horror series or go to something a little bit more today? I think let me pause on horror, and I know we've been kind of avoiding the more recent ones, but I'm still gonna stick with Marvel, because really, after Harry Potter, that was the series I was following, and I still love it, no matter even if it's been a little rocky for the past few years, I still have fun with it, and I can still name all the good things that came out in Phase 4, and you can't change my mind. Just there you go.
Well, regardless of anybody's feelings about Phase 4 or 5 or whatever the hell phase we're in right now, you cannot deny how successful the MCU was, how impactful it was, how it changed cinema for a moment, whether for good or bad. And you also just can't discount how good some of those movies in those first 3 phases are. Absolutely strong movies that made billions of dollars off of characters that we've known and loved our entire lives. So it's so cool. Everybody out there knows who Spider-Man and Batman is. But now, not only do people know who Iron Man and Captain America are, they know who Tony Stark and Steve Rogers are, right? So I still think that it is one of the best franchises out there. From Iron Man through Endgame, there is no other cinematic achievement like that, right?
That build up to Endgame, that's still my top theater experience of all time, is seeing Endgame on opening night and just the crowd exploding through that last hour. It was nothing like it.
Yeah. Rex, any thoughts on Marvel?
Yeah, MCU does not make my list for a couple of reasons. One is the whole MCU franchise it's like growing meat in a lab. Okay. That was their intention, to create a franchise and to profit from it. And at first it worked. And like a lot of franchises do, because it was new. Then we can see that it was nothing more than profit. Okay. There was nothing accidental about it. It was all pre-planned. And you see that what it didn't want to happen, and to me, inevitably happens to every franchise, really, except for a handful, is you didn't adapt, you didn't change. Okay. You had success with what you thought would work, and you just kept force feeding it to everyone. Never adapting the situation, never recognizing that your audience is beginning to change. So for example, James Bond. Okay, we talked about that, how it managed to adapt. Okay. Star Trek, not necessarily adapting, but the struggles it took to become a franchise. Despite the studio doing everything in its power, okay, to keep it from being one, it still became one. Even Star Trek the motion picture. The only reason they allowed that to happen was because of the success of Star Wars. Okay, nobody really believed it. Nobody really got behind it. Okay, until maybe Next Gen. Okay, after they got their series of movies out. Wrath of Khan really changed things. The Voyage Home was helpful, but nobody really, it was a kind of a reluctance that let that happen. So to me, MCU became very, very clear. Okay. You guys just kept trying to churn out the same formula and make a profit off of it until you let it be, you beat it, like a dead horse.
I think they got the message after these past couple years that they got to rework stuff.
Because they sat in a room and go, oh my God, everybody's not praising us. What's going on? You know, they're not acting like the Endgame. We thought we could force feed them anything, and these dummies will watch. They learn different. Now they're backpedaling because they're losing money, and they know it. Okay, so they're trying to recapture magic in a bottle. So MCU, nah, it will not make my list.
All right, for my next one, I'm going to go with a rare franchise that had its movies, and then it was over, and it's never been rebooted. It's never been relaunched. It's never been requeled. It's never done any of that stuff. They have their movies. All of them rock, in my opinion. They did have an animated series, which was all right. It was fine for what it was. But it's a franchise that, surprisingly enough, they haven't revisited. They haven't gone back. They have not put too many cooks in the kitchen to mess it up. I'm going Back to the Future. Back to the Future, 3 incredibly solid movies. I would consider 3 a franchise, and they could have tried to run that. And is it not mind-boggling that they haven't remade that yet? Right? And
because Robert Zemeckis has said in interviews, like, they try to do anything, they had to do it over my dead body.
Well, he's probably that's going to happen soon, probably. But it just blows my mind because this is the kind of thing, such a big deal back in the 80s, right? And then this is one of those. This is one of those instances where you make a movie, it's really good, and then they planned out a franchise. They were like, let's do a 2 and 3. They filmed them back to back. They led right into one another, and it works. And they never went back. Like in the 90s, they could have tried to go back.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think you can. Okay, Back to the Future is very unique in the sense that it was a great story, a great series of 3 movies. But it's Michael J. Fox. It's we laugh about it. You know, it shows up in movies and tongue in cheek about the universe. Who's the other guy who was supposed to be Marty McFly?
Eric Stoltz.
Eric Stoltz. It's become part of our ingrained culture, Americana in the 80s. You cannot remake that. Okay, there cannot be a Marty McFly that isn't Michael J. Fox. There cannot be a Doc Brown that's not. I forget the actor's name.
Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd. It cannot. It just cannot. So if you remake it, it will fail horribly, I think, and you just cannot recapture that.
And the angry mob will come find you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful piece of Americana, and it's over. Leave it alone. Don't
see, and that's why it's on my list, right? It's because how many times we've had these conversations here on the channel, and somebody goes, oh, Star Wars, they've ruined my childhood. Oh, Marvel, they've ruined my childhood. Oh, this, they've ruined. Back to the Future, if you're a Back to the Future fan, you're good. If you're a Ghostbusters fan, it gets a little tricky sometimes.
I think that's a great example you brought up. Ghostbusters. They've tried to reincarnate that, even with the same actors who are older. It's not working. Leave it alone. You had magic in a bottle. It's not like Star Trek. It's not like James Bond. Okay, to me, any kind of long-term longevity franchise has to have that ability that James Bond has had, that Star Trek has had. You can change the actors. Star Trek is not entirely based on William Shatner, right? James Bond is not based entirely on Sean Connery. You can change it up. You can move, and then you can move with the times. Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, I don't think has that ability. You just gotta let that go. I don't think you can remake it. I don't think it'll get better or different or anything like that. I kind of feel like that's where Star Wars went wrong, because they kept trying to link it to the Skywalkers, kept trying to go back with the movies. Okay, even the last one, and that failed. Even the TV series, we keep going back to that. Just, move away from the Skywalkers. Do something new. You have a universe in which you can do that. And I think that's been the ultimate failure for Star Wars.
The crazy thing, too, is if they remade Back to the Future, what, they'd be going back to the 90s? Like how we...
Exactly, right? You just can't remake that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't. I hope they leave it alone.
All right, Rex. What's next for you?
I gotta say, one that no one has mentioned yet. It's got to be Indiana Jones. Okay, but again, very much like Back to the Future, it's over. Okay, the last one was not bad. Good way to close it up. It's over. Leave it alone. Okay, but as a franchise, I remember when the first Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. That was probably the first time that anybody ever made an archaeologist cool, right? What did we all think archaeologists before that movie? Glasses wearing professors, head in the dust. Okay, all of a sudden we have Indiana Jones.
Well, look how important Indiana Jones is to say. Look how important Indiana Jones is to say to like Stephen Sommers' Mummy movies or even Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah. So, well, what I will say, Jurassic Park has been a decent franchise, but now it's time. I don't know where else to go with it. It's over. Okay. So we cohabitate the planet with dinosaurs. Like that somehow is going to work. I don't see how. So they tried to wrap it up. Hopefully they do. Bury it, put it to bed. It's done.
Okay. Yeah, honestly, the only thing left to do with Jurassic Park is to cross it over with Fast and Furious. That's the only thing left.
Actually, that's on my list. Fast and Furious. Believe it or not. It's one of those, again, it's on my list for uniqueness. It started out as one thing, it's become this crazy out of touch kind of thing. Okay. Yeah. All right. You got
a good way to put it, out of touch. Yeah.
Space in a Fiero, which was not that reliable on the road when it came out. Now you can put it in space. It just got to the point where it became
Fast and Furious isn't for me. I can't comment, so
that's okay. Listen,
I love the Fast and Furious movies. They are stupid and they're so much fun.
Exactly.
But they get really good. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are so good to me. Like those 4 movies in particular. And 3 is Karate Kid, but with cars. Tokyo Drift is Karate Kid, but with cars.
I to a certain degree, and I just recently rewatched Tokyo Drift. Okay. I love that one too. They somehow Han gets killed and you bring him back. Whatever, it works. You had a Fiero in space, so anything else is plausible, right?
I love how they're like, "Oh damn, dude, we killed our best character in this entire franchise in 3. Let's just bring him back."
Yeah,
for no reason.
Fiero in space, okay.
Well, these movies, I love how they did it too. They're like, "Well, these movies are technically prequels to Tokyo Drift," and then when the timeline catches up, they still bring him back anyway. So it's like, okay, let's do it.
so to me, it made my list just for that. It was sure as heck nobody came out and thought this was going to end up as a franchise by any stretch of the imagination. And it does. To me, that uniqueness makes you gotta. It's the antithesis of the MCU. Okay, which was planned, choreographed. Okay, every detail minutely. Fast and Furious. I don't know. Let's do some fast cars and crazy stunts and see what happens. Hey, let's put could you imagine a production meeting? Hey guys, what about if we put a Fiero in space? Could you imagine having that meeting at the MCU table with Feige? No, it's not happening.
Dude, it's like, it's so crazy. That's a franchise that starts about people that are boosting. They're like stealing like TV VCR combos that leads to them becoming this like international like strike team, right? Like it's so crazy.
Come on. You gotta love it for that.
Yeah, I agree. Amy, what you got?
For series, you know what? I took a break from horror. I'm going to go back to horror for a little bit. One series that I've been kind of slowly falling in love with is Evil Dead, believe it or not. Like, the first one is one of the most influential little indie movies ever made, if you think about it. And then you go to the second one, which is roughly a remake of the first one, but people say that one's even better. And a lot of people grow up with Army of Darkness. And then the newer ones that came out, the reboot and Evil Dead Rise, which are both kind of great. They're both great movies. So that series is still keeping it fresh for whenever they do another one.
I love Evil Dead so much, and I love Evil Dead 2, and I love Army of Darkness, and then I haven't seen the remake, I didn't like Evil Dead Rise as much, and I still haven't seen Ash versus the Evil Dead, but I'm glad you mentioned it because I do think it is one of the most important horror franchises out there, and it is also one that redefines itself as each movie comes up, right? Like it's trying to stick with the trends and do something different. Like the first one's a straight up horror movie that's unintentionally funny at times. The second one is just slapstick fun. The third one's this like fantasy comedy, dark horror kind of thing. And then they reboot it as like a gnarly horror movie again. And then Evil Dead Rise was this thing.
But can I be honest? I like it when it is a little bit more serious. Like, because I thought the reboot is. I think I love the reboot. I think it's arguably my favorite out of all of them.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that one out for sure.
No offense to Bruce Campbell. I still think those early movies are great in their own right, but like the reboots, it's probably the bloodiest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it was just that well done to me.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that one out. I would be remiss if I didn't mention this franchise. We are Pop Culture Philosophers. This is a very important franchise to us, to our brand, to our community. It is another franchise that they've never tried to reboot. They did try the relaunch of it, where they did a movie way later after they hadn't touched it for a while. It also became an animated series, became a video game, just like Back to the Future. It's got a lot of similarities to Back to the Future for me, honestly. It's something that only the original creators and people involved have ever had anything to do with, and it will not have anything without those people involved. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Station. Let's talk about Bill and Ted. Bill and Ted, to me, is one of my favorite franchises. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure could have just been one of those stupid, dumb movies that we all remember from the late 80s, right? Then they did Bogus Journey. Didn't really catch on as much as it should have to people. Bogus Journey is the best of the franchise. They took a long break, but in that time, they tried to do a live action series. They did an animated series that's really, really cool. But then they finally did the third movie, and I was so happy with it because Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson, they were the writers, because Alex Winters and Keanu Reeves, they came back. As silly as that movie is, it has an enduring legacy that's never been effed with. And to me, I mean, I would be remiss, like I said, if here on PCP I did not mention Bill and Ted.
I have to agree with you. The first one was a sleeper kind of movie that just you watch and you're like, whoa, this is great. But like Back to the Future, leave it alone. It's done. It's over. It is actor driven. You know, I thought that it would create a problem when Carlin passed. You know, it would have been nice if he was able to come back as well. But leave it alone. Okay. It was a movie of the times. I feel like they closed it up well, kind of like they did with Indiana Jones. There's no reason to try to capitalize on that, bring it back, or anything else. You know, but I agree with you. It should definitely, be worthy of mention.
Absolutely. Any thoughts on Bill and Ted, Amy?
It's Bill and Ted. No controversies here, no arguments. It's worthy.
Okay. Word. All right. Well, let's wrap up with any final ones that you want to throw out there, Rex.
The only thing I would throw out there is probably Hunger Games, because that was unique when it came out. Again, feel like you need to leave it alone. All right. They're attempting to make a prequel. I don't know how successful it was when, the series came out about snow. I had no interest in watching it. It was what it was, and it was good, and I enjoyed it, and it's over. That's the thing. Some of these need to be over when they're over, and that's all.
Yeah, I really like the Hunger. I haven't seen the new one. I guess there's the prequel or whatever that they're doing or something.
Yeah, it's just a one. I thought it was just a one-off.
It was like a mini series or something like that.
It was a movie. It was just a one-off.
I have no
prequel story.
I have no interest in seeing a prequel about snow. I would have some interest in seeing something after the fact, like how does the world rebuild kind of thing. That might be interesting. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's over. Leave it.
Those movies, though, when I first watched them, I was really surprised at how much I actually liked them. Like, I think the second one is the best. Like, the second one is so good. I was really surprised at how dire and bleak and bloody it was, because I was like, oh, this is for like young kids, right? And then it was like I was really surprised with how much I enjoyed those films. All right, Amy, any final ones you want to mention?
I think I brought up all my favorites. Yeah, the Universal, Harry Potter, MCU, Evil Dead. I mean, and we brought up ones that I do enjoy. I mean, I enjoy the Bonds. I enjoy Indy. Yeah, nothing else that's immediate. Like, I think, Robbie, you said you had a longer list, didn't you?
Yeah, I do. I'll list some of the other ones. Yeah, I'll list some. Okay, so here's a franchise that did the impossible, a franchise that I think sucked for 3 movies and then got better and keeps getting better. Mission Impossible. So I want to give a shout out to them. I love 4, 5, 6, and 7 Part 1. Like, I absolutely love those movies. A franchise within a franchise, Guardians of the Galaxy. 3 perfect movies. They don't need to be revisited.
Agreed.
Just let those exist as they are. Another of my favorite Sylvester Stallone franchises, Rambo. I love the Rambo franchise. Even the bad ones, like 2 and 3 are not as good as some of us remember. And even 5, which is basically Home Alone with Rambo, I still like that one. I love all 5 of those Rambo movies. Lord of the Rings, I think technically that can count because I don't know if I want to count The Hobbit as a part of that franchise, but those 3 Lord of the Rings movies are really good. I'll stick up for Godfather 3 and say Godfather is a great franchise. That I saw Anissa mention that they could have that they should remake it or something. I think leave that alone. Don't remake it. Make movies like Goodfellas. Make shows like Sopranos. Like Godfather is something separate from those and feels different.
Don't touch that. Like, what? Like, who would even do that? Like,
horror
I know
movie
they made
franchise.
the making of the movie, but again, that was about the making.
There's always somebody out
movie.
there who's going to try to piggyback off.
Some of my favorite horror movie franchises aren't very consistent, like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or even Hellraiser. But I think Scream is a really solid franchise. Like even Scream 3 and Scream 5, which are not my favorites, like I'll watch them. I enjoy them as part of that franchise. Honestly, I think Saw might be the most consistent long-running horror franchise out there because all those movies are kind of like near the same level, right? And they kind of have their ups and downs, their peaks and their valleys. But overall, I think Saw's done a really great job. And then I got the Bourne franchise, which I think is actually pretty well done throughout. Though I thought the last one was a little bit boring. And I'll wrap it up with The Man with No Name. That's a great franchise right there of solid movies. So those are my final ones right there. Any thoughts on those, y'all?
No, I agree. Good picks.
I'm thinking about like what you said about the horror franchise. Like, right, Halloween has had different timelines. Can I give a shout out to the Chucky series because even with all the ups and downs, it kept its continuity. And I hear the TV show on USA or whatever is doing great. So
the show is great. Amy, if you like those movies, you need to watch that show. That show, and like it does it has the same story going through. And unlike Saw, it doesn't have to. Unlike Saw, it doesn't have to wrap around itself. It just keeps telling the same story, and it's been the same people involved. Jennifer Tilly is still involved. Brad Dourif is still involved. Alex Vincent, I think is his name, still involved. Like Christina Lee, still involved. It's all the same people, and it's Don Mancini, who was the screenwriter of the original Child's Play, is now. He got ownership of it, I think, with Bride of Chucky, and he's been, I mean, it's just been a very consistent story with one focus going through. And the new series, season 3, which I think they just brought back, and I need to check it out, but Chucky's in the White House. Like the president's son has the Chucky doll now. Like, and it works. It works so well. I love it. So heck yeah, Chucky's a good one to throw out there too. All right. Well, what a great conversation focusing on some of the franchises that we do love and why we love them, why they work, why we think they maintain a place on this list. And definitely lets us know why Hollywood's always trying to get these franchises. These are really great movies that we are still talking about sometimes decades after the fact. So thank you all so much for joining us. You out there in the chat, thank you. You out there watching on the replay, let us know some of your favorite franchises in the comments. Amy, Rex, thank you so much. What y'all got coming up?
Tonight is the original art experience on our channel on the experience, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna have a nice big mix of stuff. A little bit of Ken Hazer, Jim Starlin, Mike Exposito, Art Adams. So, and it's gonna be a bunch of varying prices. We're gonna have some commission cover art, so come check it out.
Heck yeah. Rex, any final thoughts?
Nope. Not me. She did a great job. That's what we got coming up. Obviously on Monday, you'll be back with me. I don't know if John's coming or not for our normal Monday night show from 6 to 8 on the Experience Comic Collectables. So what about you? What you got going on?
Well, I will be on Dylan's Horror Show tomorrow night to celebrate his birthday, which is today. So everybody tell Dylan happy birthday. But we're going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about the original It from 1990, the television movie that was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. So I'm very excited for that. That was a fun revisit. And then Monday night, we're going to be talking about Kung Pao Enter the Fist on PCP Movie Night. It's a dumb movie that I absolutely love. So that's going to be a fun one to chat about. So y'all, we appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. Station Pop Pop.